everyone, and welcome to a new episode from ProBody Talks. Today, I have a new guest. Her name is Mihaela Plugarasu from Florida, and we're going to be talking about parenting and the best way to be a conscious parent and the best parent for your kids. Hi, Mihaela. How are you doing?
Hi, everyone. Hello to your audience. I'm good, thank you. Greetings from Miami, Florida. Yes.
Yeah, thank you indeed. Good morning over there. Here it's afternoon, so you're nice and fresh and ready to go. I chose a very interesting subject today because nowadays we confront more and more with this massive subject called parenting, and I hear so many conversations about ways to educate your kid, the right way to educate your kid. For this generation that we're living in at the moment. So you are the first one in South Florida qualified in conscious parenting, other than teaching at University of Florida. So before we start our subject, I wanted you to introduce yourself a little bit to my audience and tell us what have you been doing all these years and how you got to this point here.
Okay. Well, first of all, thank you for inviting me. It's an honor and really a privilege to be here and to engage with your audience on this important topic. I want to clarify a few things from my bio. So I am the very first certified instructor to teach parenting by connection in Florida. And I have completed this training, which was a year-long science-based training with Hand-in-Hand Parenting, an award-winning nonprofit organization that has been doing parenting education for the last 40 years. Mm-hmm. So parenting by connection, first in Florida with Hand-in-Hand Parenting. When it comes to conscious parenting, the topic is really vast and complex. So we'll get into that in just a minute in terms of how I define conscious parenting and how I got here. Mm-hmm. And you mentioned my regular teaching job. Yes.
Yeah, because I want to give people a brief intro about you. You're a teacher, you're an educator, you're doing great things, and just let us know how come you got to Florida. You're Romanian like me, you got to Florida, you're teaching at a university. It's an amazing thing to do. So how you got over there, how you decided to go over there, how you got into this job.
Yeah, so I've been living in Florida for 17 years now. I came from Romania, like you said. I won't get into the logistics of how I came here, but I was a teacher in Romania. I graduated from what we call a pedagogical high school. Mm-hmm. So basically, I've been trained to teach and to be around young children ever since I can remember ever since I was 15. At 18, I was already a licensed elementary school teacher, and I taught full-time and I worked full-time like all of my colleagues back in Romania while putting myself through college. And once I graduated college, I came over here. And here in Florida, I immediately certified myself to be a teacher with the public schools. I worked for a little bit in K through 12 here in Florida. However, mm-hmm. I didn't find it to be I didn't find myself to be a good fit for the public school system, K through 12. So mm-hmm. I moved on and started working with adult education. Mm-hmm. And about 9 years ago, when I graduated with my master's degree in communication, I started working for Florida International University, not University of Florida, but FIU. That's okay, which is the fourth largest public university in United States. Fantastic. We serve a total of 60,000 students here in Miami, both in person and online. And we serve a very diverse population, student body. Anyway, so I worked in doing communications, marketing, and PR for one of the colleges at FIU. And then 3 years ago, I decided that I missed teaching way too much, so I switched into full-time teaching. So I teach strategic communication courses and communication arts courses.
Wow, that's great. That's all awesome. Of that. Congratulations.
Yeah. So that's on my full-time job. The parenting journey, of course, for me, it started when I became a mom 8 years ago. And at that time, my personal life was not so good. I had been in a relationship at that point for quite some time, 8 years at that point. A relationship that was not good for me. And
like so many other women nowadays.
Yes. And what's interesting is that all along I knew it was not good for me, and I knew I was not happy, and yet I kept going. But when I became a mom and I saw the dynamic between my now ex-partner, the father of my son, the dynamic between the two of us, and how that dynamic was being absorbed by my son, that to me was my wake-up call. And I knew intellectually from science, I was very well informed and educated, that the first 7 years of a child's life are the years that determine the unconscious beliefs on which that child will grow up and become the adult that he or she will. And for me, knowing that I have that awareness that what I expose him to is going to determine how he's going to see life, the lenses through which he's going to see life, I just couldn't live with myself not taking responsibility for that. So that was the beginning of my journey into conscious parenting, which nowadays it's a very popular word or phrase.
Yeah, it became very popular nowadays, and I think over-abused a little bit, to be honest. People don't even get it when they use it. So I wanted to make clarification with that phrase at this stage also before we end our topic today.
Yes, I completely agree. And because it became so so widely known, it became a phrase that everybody heard, at least. It made it acceptable, which is a good thing, because when we don't want unconscious parenting, that's for sure. So I personally vow, and I am very grateful. Here in the US, there is a psychologist, a clinical psychologist, and she was born in India and then trained in the US at Columbia. Her name is Dr. Shifali, and she's the very first one who, at least here in the US, brought conscious parenting to the masses in terms of awareness. So anyways, I'm very grateful for her work. Coming back to what my definition of conscious parenting is exactly my story, is that moment of awareness, that the wake-up call, the moment in which I realized, it's clear to me like daylight, that the way I parent my child is going to determine the lenses, the filters, the beliefs that will determine how he or she will live his life. So then the question is, okay, so then what is conscious parenting? Conscious parenting is a choice that we can make and some of us do make, is a choice to see parenting as, first and foremost, the relationship between me and myself. In other words, am I aware as a grown-up person, as the adult in the relationship with my child, am I aware of my own limiting beliefs that I bring with me in the parenting relationship? Am I aware of all my fears that I bring with me and then I dump, sorry for my language, or project on my child and train him or her to carry on the same fears? Because up until they're 7 or 8 years old, children, we call that, and in psychology is called magical thinking. For a child who is under 7 years old, everything is magical. Everything is real. Everything is true. So
I remember, even though I don't have kids, I remember I was once a child, and I remember that time when everything was magical. And the way your parents or your school or people around you bring things into your life, that's the way I call subconscious infiltrating of programming, which, you create at this specific age.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So knowing this information, which is science, we know it from neuroscience, we know it from new genetic studies. I mean, if people are familiar with Bruce Lipton's work, I highly recommend that. The Biology of a Belief. Yes, and I know you read all of his books. I highly recommend that to everyone. Even if you don't have children in your audience, I highly recommend Bruce Lipton's work, particularly The Biology of a Belief, because we now have the science that tells us how the unconscious is being formed in 0 to 7, in that period of time.
Exactly.
So then, once I have this information, which is at an intellectual level, conscious parenting becomes a choice, because then I can pause and start asking myself, am I parenting my child to fit into an ideal image of that I have created of what good or good behavior, or what a good job is going to be for you, or what society will reward you for, things like that. So I'm making the choice of, am I parenting my child to fit into whatever I bring in the relationship that's unconscious? Again, my beliefs, my fears, my filters of how I see the world. Or do I make the choice to enter into a partnership in the parenting relationship in which I constantly, every day, day in and day out, choose to see my child as a separate individual from me that came to me and into this world with his or her own journey to follow. And then my job becomes to be a guide for that, to be a guide, one, and second, but equally important, to create a structure, to set limits, because again, children cannot develop in a healthy way if they don't have predictability in their lives, if they don't have a structure, a schedule, if they don't have things that they can count on. That's where their sense of safety in the world comes in. So I must act like the adult. It's not that the child takes over the relationship. And I want to make that clear, because a lot of parents, their first reaction is, oh, so that means whatever your child says, you say, okay, fine. No, that's not what it means. I am the adult.
You still need to have the authority, but you don't need to have the authority of tyranny. You need to have the authority of love. And through the authority of love, you need to infiltrate, as I said before, your kids, these specific virtues. And I want to get to that point in a second. That's how I see it, and that's how I understand from what you're saying.
Yes, and absolutely. So that's exactly where the unconditional love factor comes in,
Exactly.
because we do say that we love our children unconditionally, and I believe we do. However, because we're not entering in the relationship with the intention to be self-aware first, our reactivity kicks in every time our children don't listen, they don't wash the dishes, they don't want to do their homework. What do we do in the moment? We react. And many times we do not react in a pretty way. So then I want to challenge parents who are in that reactive mode. Are you loving unconditionally in this moment? Yes or no? Yeah. So the answer is a very complicated one. But that's exactly what consciousness comes in as a choice. Because once I start my day with the intention that I am going to be self-aware throughout the day, and as I interact with my child, because he or she is a mirror of all the things that I still have to work on, because those are all the triggers, the buttons that they push, then the moment we feel triggered and we want to react, the instinct is to react because our emotions take over, then the choice that we make every day allows us to pause. 1 millisecond of pause allows us to either remove ourselves from the situation or take a deep breath and say to the child, I don't feel well right now. I need 5 minutes for myself. I'll come right back. Or if physical safety is a priority, you just focus on that and keep the emotional reactivity for later, for you to deal with in a different context and not towards your child.
Thank you all for watching ProBody Talks. We will be bringing you more guests in my upcoming episodes. Great inspirational human beings, so stay tuned. We have a lot of valuable information that I hope will inspire you all. In the meantime, you can support us by subscribing to my Patreon account. Thank you and goodbye everyone.